Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazal Ministries podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, superheroes, supervillains, and distressed babysitters of all ages, we welcome you all to the wonderful world of Walt Disney's animation studios. This is Systematic Ecology. We are the Priests of the Geeks. I'm your host, Christian Ashley, as we continue on through one of our Disney series. Today, I am joined by, of course, the core three that were there at NC Comic-Con together. You know, the greatest hosts, if you want to say that. I mean, there's come up with good ones here, but I mean,
the Trinity of
team.
the Systematic Ecology, if you will.
Yeah, the Holy Trinity of SG. Yes, it's a reunion.
Yes,
it's a reunion.
Of Holy Trinity. We have Will Rose. How's it going, Will?
Good. I want my nickname for this particular episode not to be Jack, but to be Will.
Will. All right, perfect.
Yep. Okay.
It's Will. We got Pang. How's it going, Pang?
Hello, it's going pretty well.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm excited about this one. But before that, guys, what have you been geeking out on recently?
Liz, go first. Hop in.
Okay, well, I just said it on my other podcast, but I just have to episode if you hear it. So it's just so good. And I started reading the manga because I couldn't wait for the week-to-week episode. Honey Lemon Soda. This is the pinnacle of 2025 romance, guys. I blush, I swoon, I have to go hold my husband's hand because I'm just like that, it's happening. Oh my gosh. Like high school, like me is literally swooning reading.
It's called
manga.
Honey Lemon what?
Honey Lemon Soda. It is fantastic. It has everything you want. Yes, it's in a high school setting and I'm in my 30s, but that's okay. We ignore that part. It's not weird.
Where do you watch it? Where do you stream it?
Crunchyroll. There is 4 episodes, 2 English dub, but then 2 sub. So not only have I watched all 4 of the sub, but as even the English dub is getting released, I'm rewatching them too. And now I'm reading the manga. So I'm obsessed with this. And it's your classic girl who gets bullied, trying to come out of her shell. Boy helps her out to discover herself. She finds her hidden strength. And yeah, it's just fantastic. Cliche, Hallmark anime right here.
Hallmark anime. Who doesn't
Hallmark,
love that?
the pinnacle of the 20. I'm calling it right now. This could be the best romance of 2025.
Okay. We're not even done with January yet.
I know. I'm very
words.
excited. It's
How
bold
about it?
words. Someone hold me to it.
All right, Will,
Cool.
how about yourself?
Yeah. Christian, I'm interested in your thoughts on this. I watched the first couple episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and I'm hooked. I love it. It's charming. It's in the kind of Tom Holland MCU Spider-Man universe, however you want to classify it. I went in cold, not seeing any trailers, not knowing anything. And I was like, oh, I kind of know what they're doing here. I know where this fits in and whatever timeline they're playing with. But the animation, the voice acting, the characters are all there. It's not quite the same retread of all the stories, but all the canon Spider-Man characters that you grew up with or think show up in this particular series. And I can't wait to see the twists and turns of how they tell the story. I loved it. Christian, how about you? It's okay if you don't, because I know you're a Spider-Man fan and you have very, very authentic opinions about your favorite fandom, similar to me and Star Wars. So I'm all ears. I'm sitting at the feet of Christian. What do you think?
Well, I was going to make this my geeking out too, because I also watched the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Brothers.
Here we are.
Yeah, of course, brothers in arms. I am mostly positive with this series so far. I think there's some interesting choices into who they chose to make his supporting cast for this. He's way too young for some of them to be showing up, but you know what? A different reality, I can finagle a little bit, because originally it was going to be like that. This is what was happening to him before he shows up in Civil War, but then they decided, well, that's too limiting, and I agree with the decision. So they decided to do their own thing. So it's MCU inspired, but not in the MCU, outside of the whole reality thing, alternate reality. So it suffers from that problem of that's what's happening with every show right now. Instead of the 20-some episode seasons we used to get, they're condensing it down to 10. And you can tell that they're moving too swiftly because of that in the first two episodes. But I like what they're doing. I think the animation is growing on me. Peter's pretty much perfect, how they're characterizing him. I'm in it to win it.
Yeah. When they did 3 months later after he got bit, I was like, oh man, I want to see like the day after, the week after. Like I want to see that learning curve. But if you got to speed it up because this day and age, you can only do 10 episodes. You don't know if you're going to get a second season, then tell your story, I guess. But I'm excited. It's another appointment television each week when it drops on Wednesday mornings or whatever. I'm going to be there with a cup of coffee ready to watch it before the day starts. So not a bad new comic book Wednesday to wake up and have a new Spider-Man cartoon waiting for you.
Oh, yeah. All right. So we are still in our Disney series, as mentioned earlier. Today, I don't think I forgot to mention it, we're actually doing The Incredibles as part of our different eras of Disney. This is not technically an era, but we're doing Pixar kind of animated films. You heard Toy Story beforehand. Now it's time for The Incredibles. Spoilers, my favorite Disney movie of all time.
Wow. Bold. That's a bold statement.
And if you're interested in hearing some more of what we've had to say about Disney films in the past, you can check out the playlist and the link down below. But guys, today, The Incredibles. What is this story about? Someone who has never watched this film, and I pity that poor person. How can we tell them why they should do it?
Christian, did you just allude that it's not Toy Story that's your favorite Disney film of all time? It's The Incredibles is your favorite Disney film of all time.
Indeed it is.
Now, before we get right into the plot, now in terms of Pixar and Disney, at this point, when this comes out in 2004, does Disney own Pixar, or is this one of the things that lures Disney to be like, this is so well done, we have to own Pixar? I was trying to find online, and some of the dates weren't mashing up for me, and I'm just kind of wondering when that accusation was, and
they bought them in 2006, so this may have been a motivating factor, and it did fairly well.
Yeah. As a comic book fan, I will say that this is the Fantastic Four movie we never got. And so when I watched this way back when in 2004, I was just like, here you go. Here's the Fantastic Four. Because of copyright and Marvel and all that, you can't do all of it, but it was pretty on the nose what they were doing in terms of a family of superheroes. It's a in terms of the plot, Christian, you're so good at recapping. I'll let you recap, but I would just say it's up there in my top favorite films of all time. I think maybe once a week, maybe a couple times a week, I'll say, "Where's my super suit?" Is in my head, and that's just what I say because of this movie.
Okay, so we start in flashback. We get superheroes are in the world. We've got Mr. Incredible, also known as Bob Parr in a civilian life, who is about to marry Helen, going to be Parr, Elastigirl, and he is thwarting the schemes of an evil villain known as Bon Voyage, where this I love the names in this film. And in the process, he gets a sidekick he didn't want named Buddy, who is his biggest fan. And through a bunch of shenanigans going off, that it's an explosion, a guy gets hurt, and Mr. Incredible tries to save him. He also gets married. But then as a result of what happens, they start what's known as a superhero relocation program, which superheroes are banned from doing their jobs, from protecting people. They're forced into a civilian life. And then we flash forward, I think about 15 or so years later, where Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl are married. They've got 3 kids, Violet, Dash, and little baby Jack Jack. Love my boy Jack Jack. And Mr. Incredible is in this soul-sucking job of being an accountant for this insurance firm or something, dealing with people's files, and he's not able to save people in the same way he used to. And even when he tries to do it in his job, he gets stonewalled by his boss, who's a huge jerk. And he just wants to be a superhero again. So he and Frozone, one of his main guy is, of course, voiced by Samuel L. Jackson. Do superheroing on the side every now and then illegally because they also want to get back into the game, which, of course, gets them in a little trouble. And they're then contacted. Mr. Incredible is contacted by a woman named Niraj, who says a wealthy man wants to hire him to stop this rogue droid that they made. And he goes down, barely survives the fight with it. Then they come back home. There's some marital strife, with the secrets that he's keeping. Helen thinks he's having an affair because of the hair she finds on his thing. He gets a new costume with Edna Mode, also one of the best characters in the film.
Yep.
In a film with a lot of good characters, and then he is brought back to the island because of something else, and it turns out the droid is back. It's been upgraded, and as he finds out, superheroes who have been in hiding have been lured here to fight this thing multiple times over because Syndrome, who is a grown-up buddy, has become wealthy and wants to kill the superheroes so that he can be the superhero now and to get revenge on Mr. Incredible for not taking him on as a sidekick forever ago. And as we learn throughout the film, their children, Violet and Dash, and eventually Jack will find out, also have superpowers. So Helen tries to investigate. They come with her, and they all get captured. And then they start forming like a family team as, the Omni droid goes rogue and takes down Syndrome because he starts, villainously monologuing. And eventually he gets taken down. They fight the thing with Frozone, work together. The people love them again. They love superheroes once more. And then they take down Syndrome before he tries to steal away Jack. And we end our film with everyone much better off than they were before. How do you think? Anything I missed?
You forgot to talk about the babysitter.
Yes. And this whole time, Elastigirl trying to be smart, leaves little Jack behind because he's not even one, and his powers are still developing, and it seems like he's got those combo platter powers of whatever he can do. And poor, I think her name's Kari, is like struggling to keep him there. And if you haven't seen the short film that they do of Jack Attack, you're missing out because that is some great comedy there too.
The rhythm of, this is 2004, so this is pre-MCU. We definitely had a wave of superhero movies in the 80s and 90s and with the first Spider-Man films, but this is before MCU. But, this animated version, Brad Bird, who I guess did Iron Giant, and it didn't do great in the theater, but he wanted to do a kind of a superhero movie. And with Pixar, in terms of what superheroes are or aren't or washed up or midlife crisis and family, they are spot on in terms of the tropes of what it means to be a hero, maybe some trauma there, what makes the villain, and then how to come together as a family and grow together as a family to fight the villain superhero team, and how these powers are actualized and animated. It's beautiful. It's great. I'm with you. It's one of my favorite films up there as well. And the comedy, the facial expressions, just the subtle nonverbals that they're doing, even with the animated, is just great. Just great.
Hank, anything you want to add?
No, it was just fun. Even like going through, I think they hit a really cool family dynamic as well. So definitely, even if you're not into superheroes, it was just kind of family friendly, because I wasn't really into superheroes at that time, but it was just a fun movie. My Spanish teacher actually looked exactly like Edna Mode, and so we would call her that behind her back. But she really did. It was really fun.
Perfect. All right. So when did we all first see this film?
Probably when it first came out. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I saw it in theaters, but I remember seeing the previews of it and like anticipating the movie. And so I saw it probably in 2004.
Yeah, it was October 2004 because I looked it up because I was trying to think about when the timeline of my life. Like I can't remember. Hannah was 2. Ella was just a couple months old. I'm like, surely I didn't see this in the theater because I had a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old and probably moving from Florida to South Carolina. I'm trying to figure out, but I know I saw it somewhere and immediately fell in love with it. And then it became a staple. The DVD became a staple just in our family viewing and kids watching. So, we know it backwards and forwards from that. But I can't remember if I saw it in the theater or just right when it went to DVD. We watched it as a family in the house and immediately loved it. So, from the beginning, it was there, and my kids were kind of in that sweet spot of where they were growing up. Let's show them a good, animated, fun movie, and that was it. That's what we watched.
Yeah, that reminds me. One of the kids my mom watches, he started getting into it a lot too, because we used to call him Jack Jack. He didn't have much hair back in the day, and he was always everywhere and places he shouldn't be. So that's that movie. I don't know how many times it's been played at our home just from us watching it, siblings versus all the other kids mom has had in the house. And there's a reason, because it's just that good. And I saw this, I don't think it was opening weekend, but around that time, fairly soon, and fell in love. Because, yeah, Will, you're right. This is around a time, we've had the X-Men, we've had Blade, we've had, Spider-Man, and we haven't had a Fantastic Four film yet. And you're right. I mean, that's one of the big jokes around this film. It's the best Fantastic Four movie ever made. And I can't argue against that, because maybe First Steps changes us all whenever that does release. But right now, I mean, this is kind of the perfect encapsulation of that family. Their power sets are different and everything, but there's enough of an influence on the film that you can see. So, yeah, I'm not going to say anymore. I love this movie.
If you'd like to support our show on Captivate, feel free to go to captivate.fm and find our show, subscribe. You'll get access to any future online D&D campaigns over there. You'll get an extra bonus question for 4 to 8 times a month. You'll get extra content like that through there. You also get a one-time donation you could make to help support the show right on Captivate. So you don't get anything for the one-time donation, but if you would like to just support the show once, do a quick donation, you can do that through captivate.fm. Our overhead includes editing software, marketing, equipment, recording software, and a whole lot of other stuff. And we really appreciate everybody who can help keep the lights on.
Let's go into discussion before I start gushing. Do you have a favorite scene or moment from this movie?
The most memorable scene, and I'm pretty sure this was in the preview. So let's do math. 2004. How many years ago was that?
21 years ago.
I hate this game. So I'm 32 minus 21. So I'm 11 at this time. So I feel like Violet is on that preteen, age. And so like this resonated, like, obviously. And I was such a moody girl because we would just pass the night. So I was like that little emo hipster type girl. So Violet, I felt a very like connection to, and I was boy crazy as well. I've said this before, but that scene when she turns invisible and he's like looking at her, but not at her. And then he like walks away and she's like, he just looked at me. And like, she's literally like so in love with this boy and being a typical, like, I identified with that so hard being 11 years old and just watching that and like just rooting her on so much. So that's probably the most memorable scene. I think favorite scene was at the end when when Dash finally got to play sports, and so but he couldn't win so bad, and so they're like, slow down a little bit, no, speed up, slow down. I love that scene.
The looks of the parents in the stands.
It's so funny. It's like, we know you're going to win, but like, just go easy on them.
Don't win by too much. Yeah. I think for me, I do like the beginning of the movie when you get to see them kind of use their powers and a little mystery of he's late to somewhere, but you don't know where he's late to. And I got time to, and you see the unfolding of all the things that Mr. Incredible wants to do and what brings him joy in this. And then when he eventually runs into Elastigirl and her like flipping over the buildings and stretching and going away, like that animation being like, that's cool. That's how you would use elastic powers. It's so, so good. So I love that. And then the just the doldrum of like everyday office life and seeing the character arc or the story, the plot line of Mr. Incredible is pretty fun. But of course, you can't talk about this movie without like the babysitter like freaking out and the phone call and the voicemail and the unfolding voicemail of Jack getting his power set and it finally hitting and what she's called to do. It's just, there's nothing better than that. And even Buddy and Syndrome. I think, yeah, who doesn't want to be a superhero? You look up and you're fans and, we go to Comic-Cons to get autographs of people we look up to and all that stuff. And then the disillusion to then turns bad because, the tensions went wrong. Yeah, it's classic. Love it.
Oh yeah. I mean, so many good ones to pick from. It's Final Battle. I mean, I always love a good action scene. And you get to see everyone's power sets, just working with each other, like learning to work together as a team, as a family. Of course, Frozone coming in to save the day as well.
Frozone.
I mean, love him. Love Samuel L. Jackson. I could listen to that man talk all day. And just because they're working together, because this droid, the Omni droid, has been built to fight against, multiple superheroes, has murdered many of them in the past. And now there's that huge threat. It's like, well, Violet and Dash haven't really trained that much for their abilities. Like, she's like a very early Invisible Girl when she was still the Invisible Girl instead of Invisible Woman, like learning how to actually erect a force shield and turn invisible well and not get captured. And you have Dash, who's super fast, but I mean, that's not going to stop a giant metal robot. So there's an actual threat to the children, and they actually realize that, and it's not played for laughs or anything. It's like there's an earlier moment where Helen's like, look, these are not like the bad guys in your Saturday morning cartoons. They will murder you even if you're a child. So keep that in mind. So there's a huge threat of the entire family, and it's also a Disney film, so you're not expecting it to happen. Like there's a terror there, but then they all work together, take it down, and then after being in hiding for so long, like the people respect them again. And that's one thing I do like a little bit more about DC than Marvel, is that most of the common people tend to respect their heroes more in DC than the Marvel universe. So it's nice to see something like that happen. But I'm also going to go with the moment when Mr. Incredible finds out what's been happening on the island. And that this has been planned, and he's going through all these lists of these different heroes, and he sees Gazerbeam was like the last guy there, and these are his friends that he used to work with, loved working with them and loved in sharing experiences, and they've all been murdered because of the ambition and ego of Syndrome, and it's very haunting as he's just going file by file. That's a really great scene.
Yeah, and I think about their power sets and how they're used together. I've talked about some other places too. I love the team books because it's cool when they have their individual superpowers and they have their own story arc and character arcs. But when you have a threat bigger than the individual, they have to come together and work together as a team, like a basketball team, football team, whatever sports cliche you want to use. But them eventually coming together and use their power set is pretty amazing. And if you think about I've always thought that Sue Richards, Invisible Woman, her power set is pretty awesome. We did one year during March Madness, my comic book store did a brackets of superheroes and the final four and then who would win in the end. And I had Sue Richards going, Invisible Woman, going all the way to the championship because, and not just turning invisible and things invisible, but putting force fields around things or putting just she can knock you out with a air pocket in your brain, and she gave me an aneurysm like that. It's over if she really wanted to flex really hard on those powers. And so what that would mean in terms of suffocation, but force fields, turn things invisible or not, that power sets, I think, highly underrated when it comes to her, and I hope they showed that in the Fantastic Four movie how awesome her power set really is, other than just I want to disappear and not be seen, which as a middle school goth girl who's insecure, maybe that's what you want to see, but then at some point you come into your own and you become more confident and use it in different ways.
Yeah, it's one of those things you see the early Stan and Jack when they're doing Fantastic Four. It's they just had a woman there for the sake of there being a woman. I have a pretty face around there, and eventually she got more characterization with them and under other writers. But was it Byrne who actually stepped in and made her become Invisible Woman? It's look, if you actually think about it, she's the biggest threat here. I'm sure the Thing's the big rock guy who can topple buildings. Johnny can burn you alive. Mr. Fantastic can stretch. Well, someone with her power set, I ain't fighting against that.
Yep, 100%.
All right. So one thing we also like to focus on here when we're talking about these Disney films are just particular moments of animation that are striking to us. Is there anything that jumps out at you guys?
Nah, I don't pay attention. I appreciate when it's not bad, but actual animation, cool. I don't care about that.
I should know better. Will?
No, I rewatched it recently just to refresh my memory for this pod, and it holds up. It's so good. I think about it being over 20 years old and still just being an absolutely gorgeous animated film, which at the time, that's probably what we were all gushing over, not just the storyline, but just the tech and why Disney wanted Pixar. Because like, oh, they're doing good stuff. We got to get them because it's just the animation's perfect. And I know, I think Brad Bird reading somewhere was saying wanted to do that kind of traditional 2D animation like you would with Snow White or whatever old school Disney, but using that computer generated. It's not blocky. It's not obscure. Like it's facial expressions. You freeze frame on the old black and white newsreels, and it's good. It's so good. It's amazing that it's 20 years old.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the final battle, I think, is one of the most well-animated parts of the film. And since I already talked about it, I'm going to choose the opening of the film because of everything, like some of the stuff that you mentioned, like her flexibility, the way she moves around Elastigirl. That's animated very fluidly. Then, of course, you've got the comedy of errors that just comes up with like trying to stop this guy from Bon Voyage from stealing this money. And then you've also got this kid who's not supposed to be there, whose suit and everything doesn't work yet because he hasn't actually tested anything. He's just that fanboy who hasn't thought through what he's about to do, and the building's collapsing. And Mr. Incredible saves someone's life who was trying to like commit suicide. And it goes into that bit of they're all the comedy of errors that happen create this registration act and kind of changes the course of the world for the next 15 years. And it's very important. I'd also throw in, animation-wise, Elastigirl infiltrating Syndrome's base and utilizing her powers effectively there, where she keeps getting stuck in the doors. Like, it's very funny, but it's also drawn really well and does amazing work. And yes, some of it's a little fan servicey, but at the same time, like there's a purpose behind what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. And there's small moments too. Like I reminded how great the scene is when Mr. Incredible is lifting his car over his head, and the little boy in the little tricycle is there staring at him, and his gum pops on his face, and he just stays, and it stays silent, like that awkward for just a few moments, and he's just staring at him. Just the way that unfolds is brilliant. And with the Superhero Registration Act, that's been played with in comics and other places and what that would mean. But it's not the first time comics have entertained that thought. But if there really were people around with superheroes, superhero powers and mutants or whatever, we'd be terrified. We'd be like, what in the world is going on? So it would be very intimidating. All of a sudden, there was a group of superheroes that were around the world doing good or evil. It would be pretty terrifying.
Yeah, and I know you probably talked about this on the X-Men episode or something I'm forgetting. Was it the X-Men Inhumans one?
Probably.
Did you talk? Okay, yeah, because Pang and I have done it before for My Hero, and I understand why things would exist, and I would even say we should pass legislation, if these superheroes actually exist in the world. But there's that part of me that just wants, that's the anti-registration. That wants to believe
Christian's
in,
a vigilante.
Yes. It wants to believe in someone who's doing something for the sake of good, who's doing for the sake of protecting other people. And I don't want to know who that person is because, well, if it's in a government registration somewhere, well, how easy is that to hack into? How easy is that for someone to take advantage of? And suddenly their family's at risk. There's a reason why superheroes typically have a secret identity. So I flip-flop. I'd argue, like, if this is the real world, if Jean Grey exists, if Professor X exists, a telepath who can take over people's minds with literally a thought, I need to know what they can do, and I need to have something in place to make sure that doesn't happen to, say, the president or, a leader of another nation or what have you. So I understand why that needs to be a thing. I just don't like it.
Well, I do. I am still like unpopular opinion, super unpopular, and I'm just pointing it out there. Not sure I agree with it, but I'm like, why don't we just, I know it's an invasion of people's privacy, so don't come at me. This is not a political statement, but this is just how I believe in like, why don't we, if people are born in the hospital, just go ahead and take their DNA right then and there, put it in a database, and then that way, crime scene, boom, like it will solve so many dang crimes. But invasion of privacy, I understand that. But that's just kind of like where I think. I'm like, just register everything. If everything's tracked, everyone has accountability. But remember, I align on the communist side of things. I've said it before. That's the quiz I took.
What quiz is that?
I don't know. It was like in public speech class or something like that. And I still remember this dude's thing. And so we had to take a quiz. And it was like some kind of political quiz. And I literally got communism. Only one who got communism.
I love that story.
It was because I was like, yeah, I don't care. The government can decide. I'm just going to pay attention to myself. I'm going to do me, help people when I can help them, and do right, when I can. And the government can do them. And so apparently that is communism.
Wow. I think the last time I took one of those like political compass spectrum, whatever they call them, charts, quizzes, I was like a couple notches up and like one dot away on the alt-right side. So like really close to also being alt-left, but like still just barely on the side of alt-right. I get it.
And I think because, obviously I'm not ignorant in our political things. Like I understand what's going on. We talked a lot in North Carolina. I understand a lot from the right and the left and their policies. I love information. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, I said it before the election and I say it now, like they're going to do what they're going to do. And I'm going to do what, I can't control them, so I'm going to just do what I can do in my sphere of influence. I'm not and live my life. So,
Gotcha.
So yeah, all that to say, register those dang superheroes, supervillains. Let us have a database.
Yeah, and I'm like, who do you trust? There's an element of trust. You're gonna So if you don't trust anybody, I certainly don't trust the government with that information and what they do, manipulate or commodify those things in terms of those right now who are in charge of the government and the social media and the oligarchy. Anyway, we can go down a whole different road, but yeah, this movie holds up because in terms of popular opinion being turning real fast on the heroes of those who are trying to help them, and then the oppression of that, and then making a comeback and gaining trust. There's still some issues there that need to be talked about in terms of government control. What are you going to trust? Who are you going to elect? Who you're not going to elect? Who do you all that stuff is there. So I haven't taken one of those tests in a long time. I just know that I'm right now I'm not feeling very confident in the institutional government structures that are in place. So you can add us. You can email us at joshua@gmail.net.
Well, I just have one thing to say about that.
Good game. Good game.
I showed Will a TikTok. Once again, and I don't even think I told you guys on North Carolina, I will never choose which side I align with, because once you choose a side, then people just can't have conversation anymore. And I enjoy having all aspects of conversation within reason. Mm-hmm. But I sent Will a TikTok and I was able to act it out in real life. It was just like all the Harris signs. And every time he was driving one, I was like, good game. That was
pretty classic. It is definitely memorable. If this is a reunion of our NC Comic Con, it was at that time. But
I would have done the same thing for the other party too. Good game.
Good game.
I don't discriminate. And I trust no one. So it's fine.
We know who you should be able to trust.
Jesus.
That's your family.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I've told you about my family. I don't trust them. I'm the only one who hasn't been to jail or prison in my immediate family. You know this.
A segue. We call it in the game. A segue back into the next question. Not to be derailed by certain blonder members of the show. Now, how well do we think that the Parr family's dynamics are played in this movie as a believable yet also dysfunctional family?
Yeah, I think in 2004 this came out, in terms of the stereotypes, the man at the work, the Elastigirl trying to keep the family together. You have the hyperactive boy who's getting in trouble at school, and then you have like the middle-aged girl or middle school girl who is insecure and wants to disappear. I think that's all played out in a nice way, but it's pretty stereotypical. But the way there's a reason there are stereotypes there in the first place, and then it kind of leans into that and then expands it and grows, and you see how they understand one another. I love it. There's definitely been times at family dinners when things have derailed and people are had a long, hard, stressful day, and they're acting out in ways that, because of what's going on in their lives. We've all experienced that. But I thought it was done well for the movie that it was trying to be for an all ages and family movie.
Bang.
So you have the middle-aged dad who is questioning life. He's overworked. He's not being fulfilled. He's bringing it home to his family. And so I'm sure we can all think about, like, my dad was like that, like coming home grumpy, not happy, not being able to regulate emotions. And so I think it was like the family dynamic was spot on, typical, like, your 2-parent, 2 kids household. And it was entertaining. Like I said, I related hard to it.
Yeah. That's one of the core dynamics of this film is family and like how well you work together and how well sometimes you don't. And we've got Bob very unsatisfied with his life because he used to have this passion that, was a huge part of his life. And now he can't do it anymore. And he's stuck somewhere he doesn't want to be. But it's also for the sake of his family, who he loves deeply. But it's really hard to show that at times, especially when he's really depressed. He's in the middle of a midlife crisis at the moment. And you've got Helen, who's trying to keep the family together. And she also wants to do this cool thing she used to be able to do. But she has a responsibility now as a mother, and a wife to watch after her family. And while her husband is off gallivanting God knows where, who's not talking to her, which is a huge part of a breakdown of any relationship, you don't communicate. She, of course, goes to the worst possible scenario, especially when she finds, Mirage's hair on his clothes. But that's a perfectly natural response to think, oh, well, he's doing this thing. He must be having an affair. And that word is never said out loud in the film, if I remember correctly. But the implication is there. And obviously that's for the children's sake. But as you grow up, you go, okay, that's exactly what she's thinking. Here's why. And then you've got 2 kids growing up, Dash wants to express himself. He's got this ability. Why should he have to control it? It's not his fault that he was born with super speed. But at the same time, they're living in a world where these things are supposed to be controlled. You're not supposed to be super heroic. You're not supposed to abuse your abilities like this. And you have Violet, who just wants to be a normal teenage girl. And she wants to fall in love with this guy that she's crushing on and be noticed, while she's also, ironically enough, has the power to not be noticed. And you've got Jack, whose job it is to be a baby. And you know what babies do? Nothing. And that's fine, because that's what they're designed to do. They're growing. They're becoming their own thing. They terrorize their babysitters. And this one a little more than others. And I think they do it extremely well. And why they succeed in the end is because, we have all these things working against us, but we're also family. So let's talk about our problems. Let's work together. Let's figure out you're good here. I'm good there. Let's fit in the gaps here, and we'll work together as a team. And that's one of the other reasons why I've loved this film as much as I do, because that's played extremely well, in my opinion.
And I think, they play that trope and age-old idea and virtue very well in terms of communication and transparency. Half our world's problems and our own interpersonal problems would be a lot less complicated if we just out and open, we're honest and transparent with the people that we're closest with. This is what's happening. I don't want to hide anything. I don't want to go behind your back, whatever. If you're going bowling or superhero or have an emotional affair with somebody, if you're just open and talk about with the people who are closest to you what's going on in your lives, that's going to be the best case scenario. And as a person who shepherds communities and relationships and that transparency and honesty and forthrightness goes a long way and will save people a lot of trouble if they just leaned into that more.
All right. So we have our main big bad here of Syndrome, who, as we said earlier, used to be a fanboy of superheroes and now has let bitterness and resentment kind of take over his life. He's grown up, has started a successful company enough to where he has enough money to buy his own private island and create these giant robots that he's planning to murder superheroes with, and has successfully done so. But part of his big ethos is kind of built around the idea that, as he blatantly says, if everyone is super, then no one is. Alongside this part of being rejected by his idol, that's kind of his ideology. What are our thoughts on him, as a character and his beliefs?
I feel like he's just a big baby. That's all.
I agree.
He's a big baby. He didn't get his way. It was just like everyone else when they thought TikTok was going away. You take away the iPad and they're pitching a big old fit until they get the iPad back. Listen, not everything goes your way. Get over it.
Well said.
Yeah, we talked about what makes a hero and what makes a villain, and how we respond to the traumas or disappointments in our lives often leads down the path to heroism or to be a villain and taking it out on others. His ideals aren't necessarily off base in terms of building up a company or a place to be a hero, but how he's going about it and what he's doing at other people's expense to get to where he wants to go or be noticed is is not, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Don't do it. Don't do it, folks. There's your cautionary tale. But there's simple choice of Mr. Incredible at the beginning of the movie. If he would have just said, "Hey, buddy, let me sit down with you. Let's take 5 minutes and let me have a heart to heart of why." Yeah, he's putting himself in dangers, but he's also annoyed by this kid. And he's like trying to I've done everything. I've signed your things. You're just a fan, crazy fan. Get out of my life. But if you had taken just 5 minutes to look him in the eyeballs and be like, "Look, maybe later, let's meet up for coffee and we could talk about how you can be a superhero or not," or like, "Let me invest in our relationship just a little bit to have a heart to heart with you of why we can't do these things, why I can't barge in while someone has bombs or touches bombs," and then maybe it would have been a whole different movie or saved a lot of heartache and lives. So again, just take 5 extra minutes with somebody and be honest with them, and you're probably going to save a whole world of hurt.
I think it too. Like, it's part of that's not even his own fault. He's got like 50 different things he's worried about at that moment in time. And like talking to this kid is not highest on that priority list. He's got a wedding to get to. He's got, this guy who's stealing money he's got to deal with. But yeah, he also ignored this kid who looked up to him. And yeah, he should have been gentler with his words, but he was also stressed. Like, he was understandable on all sides why this would happen.
Yes, so, but once you get into a position, here's the thing, because he chose to be a hero. If we want to get into this little route, you choose to be a hero. You choose to put yourself in a public figure. So with that comes a responsibility and an expectation. And so I feel like he failed on that. Just like people who choose to be in church leadership. If you choose to be in church leadership with the Assemblies of God, there is an expectation you will not drink. No one's forcing that expectation on you. But if you are choosing to align yourself with the Assemblies of God, these are our expectations of you to be a minister with us. And so just as if you choose to be a hero, a public figure, and you love the limelight, these are the expectations of this, whether you like them or not. Same thing with politicians or musicians or anything, Hollywood. There is a public expectation that you, even though you may not sign up for it, it comes along with the territory. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, our denomination has a booklet called Visions and Expectations. And so that's definitely something that they make you read before you go to seminary, while you're in seminary, after seminary, when you're a pastor. There's definitely visions and expectations that you have to live up to. Now, I will counterpoint and just say, just because you're a public figure or just because you're in the public eye doesn't give other people the excuse to treat you badly or treat you differently or be a jerk to you, kind of thing. So there's boundaries there you need to do. But part of me wants to be like, "Hey, buddy, read the room. There's a guy with a bomb. There's something going on. Yes, there's like 12 different things. Come on, kid. Like, just wake up a little bit. It's not about you at this moment." But then again, just
you have to handle the adult needed to be an adult.
Don't need to be adult. You have, after all that said and done, and you're looking at the kid and bon voyage is taken care of, just say like, "Hey, get 2 minutes of like, let's have a heart and heart. Hey, you want to meet up next week? I know you really admire this. You almost got yourself into trouble. We need to have a conversation, a deeper conversation about what just happened." And, as a kid who looked up to him, was like, "Oh, I get extra time, Mr. Incredible. He's going to take me out to get a coffee or pizza, to have I can't wait." Imagine with that little bit of mentorship, just a little bit would have done. Would have gone a long way.
It would have, because
I'm not excusing his actions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Buddy was an idiot. 100% idiot.
So I'm not excusing either one of their actions. Yeah. But I'm saying like it's all the perfect storm of why I'm not angry at either person initially at that moment because of everything that's going on. Which is good if you're writing. That's a good way to have a scene like that. It is there's plenty of moments like, I could make one of these people the villain here, but if I do that, I'm missing the nuance of everything that's going on. And I think they do that really well. So Buddy takes the wrong lesson from this, though, is that he can't look up to anyone. He has to be his own person. And like thinking that he could ever be a superhero like him was a fool's errand. So he's just going to engineer it. And that's his own downfall later on. It's like trying to make everyone, his plan is to make everyone as super powerful as him because he uses gadgets. He doesn't have any inherent superpowers. And he just basically wants the rest of the world to suffer by putting everyone in an even level playing field. And at the end, well, nobody's going to be super at that point.
He really had a chance to be the new Batman, and the dude fumbled.
Yeah.
Or Iron Man. Yeah, all that money, all that tech. You don't have superheroes, but you got a way to, where are you going to fund it? Where are you going to put it? Yeah, I agree. And that's why it holds up. It's so good. It does superheroes so well.
Yes. because it's his hubris that was mocked earlier in the film, mocked by himself. Oh, you sly dog, you caught me monologuing. Well, that's set up where he does it again. And when he's saving the people from the droid has enough time to adapt because that's literally his job, because he's spending his time like letting the people praise him and he's monologuing about how great he is. And that causes his downfall. And not only in that scene, but right after it, because he doesn't learn his lesson. And I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one of the things we like to do in our Disney series here is see like how they're handled across the parks. Have they appeared anywhere else? Well, The Incredibles as a series in Disneyland has the Incredicoaster, which, from what I understand, replaced the California Screaming Coaster. Now, I've been to Disney World a lot of times. I don't even know the number. I've never been to Disneyland, so I cannot confirm or deny. Apparently, that's a thing that exists. So good for them. I guess California deserves something too.
Shots fired.
Now, I do know, because I have seen this at Disney World, you can see Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl in the Disney parks more often in Hollywood studios. Normally be enough of a line there for people to get their autographs. They have appeared in several video games, including the one based on the original movie. Then you have The Incredibles When Danger Calls, Rise of the Underminer. There's a Lego Incredibles game, which sounds amazing. And when the Disney Infinity was kind of their like big crossover kind of thing they did. Now, as far as references in other movies, mostly Pixar. I believe all Pixar. Cars 2, we see that there's a movie poster in there for the Incredimobiles. In Finding Nemo, there's a child reading a Mr. Incredible comic book. I think that's at the dentist's office, if I remember correctly. And in Ratatouille, we see a Bon Voyage is a literal mime in the film, which makes sense. He's kind of French.
The same one? That's confirmed?
I think they have confirmed it's him. I don't know how that works, but don't worry about it. Then we have in Coco, from what I understand, there was a poster that had the Parr family kind of seen as skeletons, as fits the subject matter of the film.
Yeah, and there is another video out there, I don't know if it's confirmed, but the babysitter looks similar to the kid who comes in Finding Nemo with the braces and the red hair and brings in a fish and that kind of thing too. So people make correlations. Is that the same girl from there? Not sure. But I do love it on Halloween when I see like a family of Incredibles. The dad has like a muscle shirt as Mr. Incredible and they're around. It's pretty classic. And just a big eye on the chest is pretty cool to see as like a symbol, as a superhero team. I do like this made its way into pop culture that way.
All right. So before we start wrapping things up, you guys have anything else you want to add?
If you haven't seen this movie and you like superheroes, I mean, come on. What are you doing with your life? Watch
and there is a sequel that's pretty fun too. So you can have double the fun.
Yeah,
you can. Yeah. And it took a long time for that sequel.
It really did.
Yeah.
I watched the sequel in theaters.
Yeah.
I waited for it. So stoked.
Yeah.
I think I saw something where there might be an Incredibles 3 somewhere down the line. I don't think there's a development date or anything.
Oh my God.
But who knows?
Why not?
Yeah. Second that, this is a really great film. We're going to get a rating and reviewing in a moment. But first, if you want to support us, Patreon, Captivate-wise, for our special supporters, we're going to do a bonus question where I'm going to be asking our panel here, if we could have one superpower, and I do mean one, what would it be? So give them some time to think about that. As we ask for reviews, how are we going to rate this film out of 10?
That's hard.
Yeah, 11 from me.
Wow. I would probably say 8.5.
Okay. Caustic critic Elizabeth Pengling and Clyde gives it an 8.5.
I would not I would enjoy rewatching it, but I'm not going to go seek out and let me rewatch it right now.
That's fair.
But I remember so much of it because it's so good.
Yeah. Me, this is breaking the rating scale. It's a 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, 12 out of 10. I could keep going. This is my favorite Disney movie of all time. This appeals to the comic book side of me. This appeals to the family drama side of me with character interactions, with a wonderful world where there's a lot of stuff there. Like you can just watch the film and move on with your life, but there's so much there of just fun built in of, oh, this character was here and you also saw them in a scene here. I adore this film so very much.
And a callback to the beginning, like where, Pang was talking about honey lemon soda and just swooning. I feel like I'm swooning over Christian right now. Like that just review. I want to grab his hand and we just skip off into the sunset, agreeing that Incredibles is 11 out of 10 stars.
You know what? I'm fine with that. I'll make the 8-hour drive your way
We're grabbing hands and skipping down the road. And people are like, what are they doing?
Wow.
They're talking about Incredibles. They're talking about The Incredibles.
All right, guys, thank you all for you do for this show. We really appreciate it. Before that, actually, does anyone have a recommendation that they want to give to the audience?
Go watch that short of The Babysitter and Jack, which I'm going to go rewatch as soon as we're done with this.
Yes, Jack Attack.
Mm-hmm.
Tang?
I've been watching Solo Leveling as season 2, so go watch that.
All right. Well, if this wasn't enough Fantastic Four for you, and you want to read a current run that has simply been amazing and fun, which is what I like in my comics, read the Fantastic Four Ryan North run. He is doing tremendous things with them. He knows how to play them off of each other really well. There's a lot of goofy antics they get up to, but also I think he just has a science background because he's way more scientifically minded. Like, he's given Reed a lot of great things to do. I am loving his run of Fantastic Four that's currently being published at this moment in time.
Agreed. And rumor is at the Super Bowl, one of the commercials may be a Fantastic Four trailer. We'll see. We've got the Superman trailer during the Super Bowl. I don't watch a lot of the game. I snack, talk with friends, but then when the commercial comes on or a trailer comes on, I stop everything and watch and see what they're doing. And rumor has it, we might get a Fantastic Four. I don't know. We'll see.
Love it if they did. All right. Guys, thank you once again for everything you do, for listening. Please, if you get a chance, leave a 5-star review on your podcasting platform of choice. We really appreciate everything you guys do with helping us with ratings, with finding more people. If you think this is quality content, you want us to find more people, keep doing it. That's a great way to do it, to help us out there. And also, another great way to help us out is to become a supporter. And I'd like to shout out a couple of them right now: Aaron Hardy, Daniel Sigmund, Trip Fuller, James Barrett. You guys are the best. We appreciate everything you do. You've decided that we're worthy of your time. We're worthy of your money. Can't say heap more praise upon you for that. But remember, we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.
Check out our merch online at the SG Shop. There you can find clothing such as hat, extra soft t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies, and more things like glassware, mugs, bags, and posters. My favorite shirt design is the one that says "All Reading Counts," so make sure you check out the store and find your new favorite merch.
Be sure to check out other Anazal Ministry Podcast AMP Network shows. You can see the whole network in a single feed if you're on Spotify, or you could go to Apple Podcasts and find the Anazal Ministries Network podcast, the AMP Network. Yeah, there's just a network on Apple. You can follow the whole thing. You'll get shows like The Homily, where Pastor Will goes through his homily messages. It's literally just Pastor Will's sermons, guys. It's great. You also get access to the Whole Church podcast, where TJ and myself interview leaders from across different denominations and backgrounds to work towards a more full church unity. You can see My Seminary Life, where Brandon Knight discusses his experiences at seminary and then discusses seminary topics, so anyone can have access to knowledge available to seminary students. You also can see Let Nothing Move You over there, where Christian Ashley goes through the Bible in a Bible study type fashion and explains the whole biblical narrative. I also have a show on there, The Dummy for Theology, where we discuss various theological topics in an attempt to show every side of the discussions, leaving you with more questions than answers. There's also The Bible After Hours, where the foul-mouthed preacher goes through the Bible from a more progressive view to challenge the status quo of the modern church. Finally, you can hear The Clydes, where Taylor and Elizabeth Clyde go through weekly discussions in a devotional conversational style method to help us all get closer to one another and to God.